the Electoral Commission reminds all eligible South Africans that the weekend of 1st and 2nd August 2026 marks the final voting station-based registration opportunity. Once the final voter registration weekend has concluded, the Commission anticipates that the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, COGTA, will proclaim the election date of the 2026 local government elections. This proclamation has profound consequences. Firstly, the voters' roll closes at midnight on the day on which the election date is proclaimed. From that point onwards, no new voter registrations or changes to existing registration details may be processed until after the elections. Consequently, the Electoral Commission will cease all registration drives and deactivate the online registration portal. Secondly, the Electoral Code of Conduct issued in terms of the Municipal Electoral Act comes into operation on the day of proclamation until after the election results are announced. The purpose of the code is to foster conditions for free and fair elections by creating a climate of tolerance, open public debate, and free political campaigning. The Commission wishes to indicate that no-go zones go against both the letter and the spirit of the Electoral Code of Conduct. We reiterate that all registered political parties, the leaders and office bearers of those parties, as well as candidates nominated by parties and candidates who are independent, are all bound by the provisions of the code. Thirdly, the candidate nomination processes for party candidates and independent candidates may now commence at the point at which the election date is proclaimed. To this end, the Commission has now activated the online candidate nomination system to facilitate nominations. The system is accessible via the website of the Commission. Fourthly, the Commission must publish an election timetable in terms of which electoral activities and their cut-off date and times must be administered. The timetable will be gazetted following the proclamation of the election date. Accordingly, the Commission calls on all eligible South Africans who have not yet registered as voters, those who are registered but have not yet inspected their address details for completeness, or those who have moved residence since they last registered, to use this final opportunity to secure their place on the voters' roll. Participation in elections begins with registration, enabling citizens to exercise their constitutional right to vote. The Commission has completed its final operational preparations for the forthcoming voter registration weekend. As part of these preparations, the number of voting districts have been revised from 23,706 to 23,699. This follows the optimization of voting station arrangements based on voter activity recorded during the first registration weekend. For the final voter registration weekend coming, the Commission will operate 23,699 voting stations across the country. Just to give you a background of rather a breakdown of the voting stations across the country. KwaZulu-Natal has the most at 5,029, Eastern Cape 4,979, Limpopo 3,315, Gauteng 2,834, Mpumalanga 1,846, Northwest 1,730, Western Cape 1,623, the Free State 1,604, and lastly, the Northern Cape 739 registration stations. All registration stations will operate from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon on both days, Saturday and Sunday. The Commission will once again deploy 48,212 trained electoral staff who will be on hand to welcome and assist eligible voters to register and or update their registration details. During the first voter registration weekend in June, over 3 million registration transactions were recorded, reflecting South Africans' continuous commitment to electoral participation. The Commission is hopeful that the same spirit of participation will prevail and imbue the coming and final registration weekend. During the last media briefing, the Commission announced the zero rating of the online voter registration portal. Since then, the self-service platform has continued to provide citizens with convenient access to the registration service without incurring mobile data costs. Following the first registration weekend in June this year, the Commission recorded more than 815,000 voter registration transactions. Of this, approximately 603,000 or 74% were processed through the online voter registration portal. This underscores the growing use of the digital online registration platform among South Africans. The highest levels of online registration activity were recorded in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Western Cape. Women remain the leading users of the online registration platform, accounting for 61% of all online registration activity. Young people are also embracing digital registration in significant numbers, with the age category 16 to 29 contributing 50% of all online transactions. The largest share of youth activity comprised new registrations, with over 52% of all transactions recorded within the 16 to 29 age category being new registration. This trend highlights the increasingly important role of digital channels in engaging first-time voters and encouraging electoral participation among young citizens. The Electoral Commission's data-free online registration portal enables voters to do the following: to register as first-time voters, to check voter registration status, to confirm voting stations, and lastly, to update contact and address details. So the Commission continues to encourage South Africans to take advantage of the online self-service portal, which is data-free and accessible 24/7. While the registration weekend is the final in-person opportunity to register or update voter details, the online service will remain active until Proclamation Day. The Commission urges eligible voters not to wait until the last minute to register or update their details. Experience has shown that a surge in registration activity often occurs closer to key deadlines, creating avoidable pressures on registration channels. The register of political parties currently comprises 620 registered political parties. So there's been a hive of activity relating to the registration of new political parties, hence that growth to 620 parties on the register. During the last briefing, the Commission highlighted several critical initiatives in preparing for the upcoming local government elections. These include the online candidate nomination system. In this regard, the Commission has opened the online candidate nomination system, allowing registered parties and prospective independent candidates to capture candidate information well ahead of the official of the candidate nominations process. To date, 76 political parties and 39 independent candidates have started using the system, supporting early preparation for the efficient submission of nominations once the election timetable takes effect. The training of political contestants. In this regard, the Commission has concluded a nationwide online candidate nomination system training, reaching 238 political parties and aspirant independent candidates across all the 9 provinces. This training initiative is intended to ensure readiness and effective participation in the electronic candidate nomination process ahead of the official nomination process. Disinformation, the Code of Conduct on measures intended to mitigate disinformation, the extended public submissions on the proposed Disinformation Code of Conduct concludes today, the 29th July 2026. Soon after this, the Commission will consider the submissions and promulgate the code. The Commission wishes to thank all individuals and organizations whose contributions are helping to refine the code and make it appropriate for our electoral environment. Together, these initiatives demonstrate that the Commission is moving steadily from electoral planning towards full program implementation. The Commission once again reminds voters that local government elections are fundamentally different from national and provincial elections. Half of the seats in a municipal council are elected on a first-past-the-post ward basis. For that reason, only voters who are ordinarily resident in a ward must influence the outcome of elections in that particular ward. Therefore, voters must be registered in a voting district of a ward where they are ordinarily resident. Unlike national and provincial elections, there is no legal provision permitting voters to vote outside the voting district where they are registered during local government elections. Voters who have relocated since their last registration are strongly encouraged to update their residential addresses to ensure that they are assigned to the correct ward. The Commission's message is simple. Register where you live. Vote where you are registered. So as the country begins the final countdown to election day, we call on every eligible South African to play their part by making use of this last voter registration weekend. The Commission remains committed to delivering elections that are free, fair, transparent, and credible. Furthermore, the Commission is committed to ensuring that every eligible South African is able to exercise their constitutional right to vote. The Department of Home Affairs has once again aligned its operating hours with the Commission's voter registration activities, ensuring that eligible voters requiring identity documents have access to the necessary services during the registration weekend. I wish to thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Electoral Officer Ntate Simon Mabulo. I'm going to open questions to the Fourth Estate, the media. You introduce yourself and the media house that you represent, then pose your questions. Also, we've got other journalists following us on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. They're also allowed to send us questions, and then we'll be able to respond appropriately. I've opened the floor for questions, if there are any questions of clarity. Please, yeah. I'm going to start this side and go that way. Can I take questions from my left, this side of the room? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Muluku Mloto, here from ENCA. I have just 3 quick questions. Of the 620 registered political parties on your database, do you have an outline of how many of those parties are new and have never contested elections in the past? I don't know if that is information that you have immediately. And in terms of political parties, can those who aspire to contest, is there a cutoff date for them to register to contest, or the ship has sailed? And lastly, in terms of the extended deadline for the submissions on the proposed disinformation code of conduct, which you said, if I heard correctly, is today. In terms of the submissions that have been made so far, do you have proposals that stand out to an extent that they are likely to even make changes that are significant to the code? Thank you. And if there are, please tell us about them.
Thank you so much, Maloko. If there's any other question, looks like we're covered. There's a question that side. Let's proceed.
Good day, it's Nkosinathi Shazi from Power FM News. Mine is a question of clarity. Now, of course, the local government elections are different from the national general elections. On the ballot paper, will it be the face of the leader of a political party, or on the ballot paper, will it be the face of the councillor candidates that has been suggested by a political party? So when we head to the polls on the 4th of November, when voters cast their ballots, will they see the leader of the respective political party, or will it be the face of the councillor chosen by the party? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bikanyo MDN TV. Mine is in relation to the previous registration. Sorry. Mine is in relation with the previous registration. Which municipality registered the lowest, and what interventions are you having in place to ensure that you probably increase the number that you would want to have? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me take the last question before the CEO respond. If there's none, let's proceed. CEO, looks like we've covered all the questions. Thank you very much. And then we'll respond accordingly.
Thank you very much for the questions. The first about the breakdown of the number of parties. The substantial majority of parties that are on the party register are parties that have historically been registered. You'll recall that earlier in the year, we gave a figure of about 508. So the difference that takes us to the current 620. It's parties that have recently been registered. Now, there is a phenomenon in our electoral landscape where some parties register but do not necessarily take part in the election. That you are registered is not automatic that you're going to contest the elections. There are still additional participation requirements that must be met, such as the submission of list of candidates, the signing of the acceptance of nominations by candidates that you are nominating, and the payment of prescribed deposits. It is only once those things are fulfilled that you can participate in an election. There's also another important feature in our electoral scheme, and that is if you are a party that is registered and you do not hold a seat either in the National Assembly or in a provincial legislature or a municipal council, on a yearly basis, you have to write to the Chief Electoral Officer indicating your continued existence. And failure to do so can lead to you being deregistered. Now, do we have a cutoff date for the registration of political parties? As matters stand, as the law stand, there is no cutoff date, which means by the close of candidate nomination, you must be registered. That becomes your effective deadline or your effective cutoff date. There are, however, moves in terms of the amendments that the Commission wishes to introduce, that there should be a cutoff date for the registration of parties. And the intention is to link the cutoff date with the proclamation date. But that is still to be realized because the amendments are yet to be passed by Parliament. Is there a single municipality that can be identified having performed the list of all municipalities in the country? All municipalities performed within an average that is that has a high note and a low note. You find that the issue is not at an aggregate municipal level, but the issue is often at the specific ward or VD level. So what has been our reaction in terms of those voting districts where there's been lower than expected registration activity? Some of them we have disestablished. as you'll see, the 7 that has been disestablished. In other words, they no longer exist because the level of registration activity there does not justify their continued existence. In other cases, there are a few measures where one voting district was merged with another for efficient use of resources. So what we now have today, it's an exercise, it's a product of an exercise that has taken into account registration activity in the first registration weekend, and where there was justification for the deletion of those voting districts, that has happened. And then lastly, to merge where indications whether merging it's a necessity. And lastly, in terms of the standout proposals in relation to the submissions on list of candidates, those are currently being reviewed. Once we close today, we'll have a comprehensive look at all submissions, and only at that point will we be in a position to intelligently respond to the question. Thanks. James, come here. James will deal with the ballots. Thanks.
Thank you very much, CEO, and good afternoon, South Africa. The question is actually very interesting because the indications was also asking about the councillors. For the upcoming elections, we don't have councillors yet. People remain candidates. So you're asking actually how would the ballot paper look? And we have to also consider that we have got 2 types of elections, which is first past the post is the ward election. This is where you're going to see individuals, either as independent candidates or as people belonging to a party. Then we've got another type of election called PR, proportional representation election. This is now where you're going to get the party leaders appearing because there we're dealing with lists. And if you are in an urban area like here, you are going to get 2 ballots, one for the ward election and the other one for the PR election, because you are in an urban area like here in Tshwane, it will be a metro. If you are in a rural area, you are going to get, once again, a ward ballot for first past the post. You're also going to get 2 PR ballots, one for the local council election and the other one for the district council election. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you so much, James and CEO. You want to add something, CEO? You're covered. Thank you so much. Let me take the last round of questions. If there's none, that's fine as well. But I've got my colleague, Anele. Just want to check if there are any online questions before we wrap up the room. We covered. Thank you very much. I saw a hand on my left. I'll come back to my right. Thank you. Let's proceed, Ntate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sis Kate. My name is Karama Fukwane, Newsroom Africa. Mine is more focused on the briefing itself, but also outside the scope of the briefing, because our government has recognized another set of, local governance structure, want to put it that way, in the sake of your communities like Orania, who recognize the date that's set for elections, but they believe in their own transitional representative council. I just wanted to find out what the commission stands on communities like that, forming part of South Africa, forming part of a municipality. In this case, it forms part of the Tembelite local municipality, but they find themselves or isolated themselves from that municipality. What the stance of the commission is regarding such communities. Thank you.
All right. If political parties have begun, I think you mentioned 76, they've begun making nominations for their candidates using this online system. Is it fair to assume that these are the ones that have already indicated that they will contest the elections? In view of the fact that you mentioned that there's a phenomenon where parties register, but they don't contest. And secondly, I want to, just to get clarity, Mr. Apane, I think you did say if you are in rural areas, you will get 3 ballots. And if you are in urban areas, you said 2. Is it urban for 2 ballots or 2 ballots are for metros? Because I'm thinking of areas such as Mfuleni, which do not fall under a metro, but they have a district municipality, but they are not rural areas, those places. Maybe if you can clarify there.
It's Nkosinathi Shazi again from Power FM News. So with the 4th of November set to be declared a public holiday to allow for maximum participation at the polls, there will be essential workers will still be working. So people in retail, people in healthcare. What message do you have to South African employers in not denying essential workers the right to vote, so that the IEC also avoids a situation where you see an influx of people coming to vote late at night? And of course, we do have high crime rates in the country. How do we avoid a situation where we see an influx of people coming late to the ballots, and your message to South African employers regarding the right to vote for their employees? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll respond to the questions. Dr. Apane?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to quickly clarify the issue regarding urban rural. Actually, I was just trying to indicate that predominantly in rural areas, but you're correct. Let's just clarify. It's not about urban rural. It's the question whether you are in a metro or you are in a municipality that is not a metro. That's the distinction. So if you are in a metro, you're going to get 2 ballots. But if you are in a municipality that is not a metro, you are going to get 3 ballots.
Thank you very much for the questions. The Commission does not legally recognize enclaves such as Orania. The Commission works on the basis of a lawfully established municipal jurisdiction. So we're going to conduct elections everywhere in the country on the basis of municipal boundaries as lawfully established. The 76 parties, indeed, they have started capturing, which means they are almost indicating their seriousness in submitting a candidate. So you can nominally say that these 76 parties are likely to be those that submit. Of course, we still have got to look at the compliance issues and whether they've paid the deposits at a later stage. But this is just an early indication of their intention to take part in the elections. We have already asked the Department of Home Affairs to consider asking the President to declare the 4th a public holiday. As soon as the date of the elections is legally proclaimed, Home Affairs will take appropriate action to ensure that the President considers the matter and in the fullness of time issue a declaration of a public holiday on the 4th. Now, you are right in saying that there's work that the Commission has to do in relation to engaging business, South Africa, business unity, South Africa, to ensure that workers, especially in the retail sector, are given an opportunity to go and vote. Some discussions have already been had with Business Unity South Africa, but we need to deepen that consultation. And it's a process of conscientizing them as well about the rights of those who work at their concerns. So it's an ongoing process, but one to which we are acutely alive.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, Moloko ke a tswala, wa tseba? Ke a tswala, all right.
My sincere apology. My sincere apology. And I'm reminded by the CEO's response to the question on Orania, because earlier you did say that the so-called no-go zones go against both the letter and the spirit of the code. And this makes me wonder whether, seeing that you have been on the ground across the length and breadth of the country, you have had incidents or murmurs of suggestions that there are areas which are problematic already, both for your personnel as the IEC and for other political parties, whether those areas have been declared no-go areas to date. Do you have such?
No, there are no areas that have been reported as no-go areas. But it is important that the commission uses every available opportunity to conscientize the country about the Electoral Code of Conduct and its provisions. And one of those provisions that the commission is highlighting is that no-go areas would not be tolerated, because that goes against the grain of us being an electoral democracy. An electoral democracy is predicated on the free flow of ideas, on the free flow of political campaigning, where all parties must be heard, and it is ultimately for the voter to decide what persuades them or what likely to influence them to vote and so on. So no-go areas have not been reported as such. We're raising this issue given our responsibility of having to make the public aware of the code and its provisions.
Thank you so much, CEO. I've got so many heads that's flaring as I'm closing. All right, last one for the road. Okay.
I'm
let's
so
proceed.
sorry. I'm so
No
sorry.
problem.
I just wanted to get it on record. For the local government elections, will they be special votes? I know we do that for the national elections. Will there be special votes for the local government elections? And if they are, who qualifies for these? Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Sis Kate, I'm sorry, CEO. It adds to what my colleague is saying, for particularly for us in the media industry, because I'm registered in my ward in Ekurhuleni, but it may be that my company sends me to a different location to cover the elections. Then what then happens? I think it feeds into my colleague.
Thank you so much, CEO.
Okay, yes, we can confirm that the 2 days preceding election day, in other words, the 2nd and 3rd of November, will be special voting days. The commission will regulate that in terms of the election timetable. Now, the issue that has been raised about the deployment of journalists, I think we're raising these issues early so that media houses can take into account these provisions of law. For instance, arrangements could be made that you apply for a special vote, go to your station early on the Monday, and then go to your deployment area. That's really the reason why we want to raise these issues early, so that they're taken into account in how the plans are rolled out at the different media houses.
Thank you, Siabonga. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This brings our press briefing to an end. Definitely weekend dinner, it's final, it's done, it's dusted. You register where you live, you vote where you are registered. On that note, Samayang Hantle, go well. See you soon. Tudulus, bye-bye.
you know all about tax, don't you?
Yes, I've been working for the tax man for years now.
So you did the audit and OUTsurance came up top.
It came out